His Eminence, Cardinal Texan, the Chief Imam, Amir, Dr. Paul Finn, Sheikh Gadel, father of the CEO of 1 Minute Praise Movement, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I think that if we look at those at the table and the rest of us in the hall, it's obvious that there's one major theme that can bring this distinguished gathering together when it deals with peace, sustainability of the community. And therefore, when we were invited to participate, there was no way we could have turned down the invitation. So I'd like to thank the movement for inviting me to come and chair this press launch of the event that will take place in July this year. I look at the mission statement of the Praise Minute movement, and they talk about time as a gift from God. And I found that extremely interesting, because this is much more than the mechanics of using your wristwatch and getting to know the time. I think there are other components that if we deconstruct that word, that we can find useful for our purposes today. One is the whole question of opportunity. That time is opportunity. Opportunity to make a difference in our communities, opportunity to transform relationships between faith communities and between groups, and to prevent the occurrence of conflict. I also think about capacity, our ability to commit ourselves to what the phrase that people use, social entrepreneurship, of trying to make a difference in our communities, but also the willingness to get engaged, because we might be capable but unwilling. So the willingness to get engaged in the philosophy that the movement represents, but also in the things we believe in as members of communities of faith, but also people with different callings. I also think about resources. And what better resource than the people that are here? Because resources is first about people. It's not about money always. The people are more important than the money. If you have the people, the money will come. So I look around the hall and I see the numbers here, the different groups that are here, and I think that's more important than money. But money is no less important, because I look at the activities they have outlined for themselves, and it's obvious that they need people, but they also need other resources. And so we are gathered here today for a very simple event, which is the press launch of what will happen in July. The observation of a 2-minute silence in July to invoke God's security and God's peace for our countries, and particularly for Ghana. And so I ask myself, why do we need to do that? Why do we need to observe that silence? Why do we need to invoke God's peace and God's security? And it reminds me that in the push and pressures of life, in the stresses we go through all the time, that many times there are inherent opportunities we don't use. And so perhaps this event in July could be an opportunity for some of those events. And I think about first reflection. Reflecting about our lives as a country, about ourselves as people, about our community, and our interrelationships, and the things we do right and what we don't do right, and trying to see how we can make amends. Reflecting about this beautiful country called Ghana. What can we do to make it better? What are the challenges that it's having, and how can we have a community of purpose in moving this country forward? Reflecting about the risks inherent in life itself and in our communities. How are we dealing with them? In many parts of the world today, people cannot gather as we are gathered here today. We'll listen to the news in the last 24, 48 hours. We have brothers and sisters that are killing themselves in different parts of the world. So even reflection becomes a timeless a possession, that they don't have the opportunity to reflect. It also tells me about participation. And participation is that in our own small ways, we can make a difference. And so if you are stopping on that day in July, wherever you are, it might look insignificant or innocuous, because, well, it might be in your bedroom, you might be in your kitchen, you might be in your office, and as far as you are concerned, it's not necessary. Therefore, I don't need to. And I'm saying to you, it is important. It is in the numbers that we can make a difference. It is in mobilizing critical mass that the world is changed. Maybe you need a critical youth, a few people like some of us who are gathered here. But the world changes because the critical youth mobilizes the critical mass. And so you need the numbers to make a difference. And so that critical mass is not just about that day. It's also about our communities, our work environment, and the things we do. How much are we getting involved in transforming our communities, in bringing opposed peoples together so that we can strive for peace and harmony and development in our community? And so I look at how the methodology that Praise Minute says it utilizes. And one of the methodologies that it says it traffics. It traffics in the intangibles. I like that phrase a lot. That it traffics in the intangibles. Worship, solitude, humility, and peace. And what could be more important as values than these, 4 attributes? So our societies increasingly focus on material goods as a measure of well-being, success, and happiness. And yet we know that they don't always correspond to these important values. And so what I see today is that we're being called to subscribe to higher values, which make life meaningful, but also enable us to develop our society in peace with one another. Distinguished members of the National Peace Council are here. And so for us, it's a real honor to be present to work with you. And Ghanaians need to appreciate that the work that National Peace Council is doing. Most of their work is behind the scenes, bringing parties together, bringing people together, fleshing areas of difference, and trying to build consensus within the community so that development can move on. And it's important that we acknowledge and celebrate the work that the National Peace Council is doing, because what the Praise Minute wants to do is to complement the work of the National Peace Council. Therefore, as we move on from here, if the July event must succeed, I think our colleagues in the media have more than an important role to play. It's all about mobilization. The critical numbers can be found if we mobilize. So we need to mobilize the community, and the medium for us to do that essentially is through the media. That's spreading the word, not just about this event, but what that represents for all of us. And last year, the United Nations organized an event. It called it Stand Up for Poverty for 1 minute. And it beat the Guinness Book of Records. So maybe it's about dreaming big dreams. That if we challenge ourselves today in terms of the numbers, that we can find the numbers so people can begin to appreciate what the Almighty is doing in our lives, but also appreciating our neighbors. Because we can appreciate God and yet we don't appreciate our neighbors. It's in the oneness, what Desmond Tutu of the South African Truth Commission calls Ubuntu, the spirit of the community. I exist because you exist. If you don't exist, my own existence is meaningless. And I think if we make these connections, that it will go very well for all of us. The whole essence of where we're gathered here is also about national orientation. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to us having a very interesting occasion today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my honorable chairman. Thank you. There was an eclipse. Everybody was some kind of shades looking at when the thing will come together. Is a bow. Me in my room, I felt nostalgia. I felt like crying. But I heard people praying, singing in all kinds of local dialects. Just after daylight started coming, all the prayers, all the singing ceased. So let's ask ourselves, for how many seconds did the eclipse occur? And for how many seconds did the people pray and sing?